Hey guys,
What's up, everybody?
welcome to the IronTrap podcast. We're doing
Explosions.
insert noises here.
Fanfare.
So we are doing another podcast. We do it weekly, and if you aren't subscribed, you should. If you're watching,
You should.
you should. And we put it on all streaming outlets and also on YouTube. You can either watch it or listen through the YouTube
Music app.
So that's that. News we have going on.
Allentown Autorama is next week, the Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It's like the 16th. I went to just go look at the calendar, and that's last year's calendar.
I forgot to put that up.
16th, 17th, and 18th. I'll put the dates below. Ag Hall in Allentown, Pennsylvania. We will be there. Luke will be there a little bit as well, Sunday. So we'll be there selling our wares, T-shirt, parts, stuff, a little bit of everything.
If you're in California or anywhere remotely far away, you don't care.
Yeah.
It's not that good.
Nope.
But if you're local, stop by,
Yep.
say hello. And that's what we got going on for events. We mentioned it before. We're going to be hitting Grand National. We won't have a booth or anything, but we will be walking around just hanging out and trying to
just say hi.
Say hi. Don't bother us too much. We're trying to enjoy the cars, but
Yes.
yeah, definitely high five or say hi. Anything else going on? The Model T that we got in Oklahoma is basically sold. A deposit should be here any day. So if you were interested, you snooze, you lose. Did the video come out yet? What you guys went and got?
Yeah, it actually came out today.
Okay,
On
so
Sunday.
if you guys didn't watch the video, head on over to the YouTube channel. We have a video out on Mike and Luke went on their own wild adventure. Mike and Luke's extraordinary.
Yeah, we got a taste of spring weather. It was 70 degrees down south. We took a bomb run. We left at 3 o'clock in the morning on Tuesday and drove straight through all the way down to Georgia. Picked up a 35 Roadster, but we got all 36 sheet metal with it.
Yep.
And then turned around and drove back the following day. It was a long day, couple days.
These guys kick butt, went on an adventure. I stayed back at the shop trying to make some progress and keep the balls in the air here and everything else going on. So
and honestly, it's nice having Luke because I could have went on the trip by myself. It wasn't that hard to load. There wasn't that much, but it was nice having a second person to just
drive
move rears and drive.
Yeah. So having the buddy system there. So if you haven't,
Luke got across 2 more states off of his world map.
Yes.
He's not well traveled, so we're letting him see the world through the IronTrap lens.
The states.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's too interested in traveling
the
much
world.
more.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we have that Roadster. We're going to be selling that. That everything we bought there was strictly a viewer was nice enough to something that he had bought for real cheap. He was flipping it to us. He left a little room in it for us, so we bought all the stuff and kind of one swift motion got all the stuff that he got. So we will be selling that Roadster. It's pretty rough, but 35.6 Roadsters are quite valuable.
They're actually really low production. I didn't realize that. 36, they only made 3,600 Roadsters.
Wow. So they're hard to find. They're usually expensive. This one will be very affordable, but it does need everything. It does need a lot of rust repair done on it. But this is one of those instances where, if you usually see the projects $20,000 and up, this is something you can buy for a quarter of that, basically. So it'll be very affordable. So check that video out if it's something you might be interested in. Send us an email or a message, irontrapgarage@gmail.com, or our Instagram is IronTrap or IronTrap Finds, Finds.
Yep.
So that's that's the news. That's the updates.
Yeah, we don't really have anything else set in concrete plan-wise for estates or trips so far.
We have stuff that's
in the works.
A few different things. Mike agreed to buy maybe some stuff back. A neighbor of the guy down in Georgia, so we may have to go back down there. So we may plan another little quick trip down south. We got a handful of stuff, so we don't really know what we're doing until it happens.
Yeah.
So, anyways, today's topic, I forgot already.
It's how to... Shit, I have to look at the list. We only talked about it 10 minutes ago.
We don't even know what we're talking about.
It's, where is it? It's all been done. How to build a hot rod or custom that's your own without copying.
Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, so this was a good one that I was kind of, we have a list, and when random ideas strike us, we put the topic in for a podcast. Or if a viewer puts a good one in, we put it in the list, and then usually literally right before we hit record, Mike and I just read down and we're like, yeah, that one sounds like a good one today. So the idea behind this discussion is obviously in the corner of the hobby that we are involved in is really about mimicking or honoring the traditions or styles or the way things were done with old hot rods and customs as they were done back in the day. And I think the neat part of this is you can take it as far as you want or as little as you want. So there's some people that take it so far as they dress period correct, that every piece on it is down to the month or year that their car could have been built, and they really get into the weeds with that sort of stuff. But then you get other people on the other side where they just want something that kind of looks old school but drives nicely, and it's still inspired by those cars of that era. So what I feel like a lot of stuff we're seeing is, I think the trends with traditional hot rods and customs are changing more rapidly, it seems like. So it's like kind of crazy if you follow this. It's like for this little time, wide fives are really cool. And, or somebody puts out a really good car, a high-end builder puts out a really good car with a certain color scheme or style, and then boom, all the guys like us that are garage builders are mimicking that in some shape or form. And when I'm building a car of my own, I'm looking at all the old photos, but you're trying to, like, in the end of the day, I feel like the core of this was about making it your own. I mean, any of these old cars that we are mimicking or using for inspiration, they pretty much always have their own little twist that makes it uniquely that car.
Yeah, 100%.
And I think some people are starting to, we get a lot of this kind of vibe because we deal with a lot of customers. People are coming to us to buy parts. So Mike especially, is having a lot of conversations with customers about their build. And I feel like a lot of people, it's like weird. They're like getting into this, like they're pigeonholing themselves where they're like, well, I'm building this car and I want it to be like the Doane Spencer car. And they're trying to like exactly replicate, or the Matranga Merc. And it's like they're trying to replicate exactly that car, and you get so many of these cars that are just like the Matranga Merc, but it's a different color, and it's like, I don't know. So we kind of wanted to discuss there's ways to make it uniquely yours, but still that old school.
And also, I've run into people that are doing the same sort of thing, but they're trying to pigeonhole their car into doing one thing. So they're like, I want to build a Trog race car. I'm like, okay, but are you ever going to want to drive it on the street? And then they think about it and they're like, well, maybe. Like, well,
I want to take my kids to ice cream in it too.
Then you should build a hot rod for the street that you race at Trog.
Yeah.
Because just building it to race at Trog, you're going to do a few things, and it's not going to be very fun to drive on the street.
Not going to be able to.
So it's like you have these conversations. I have them with customers almost daily.
That is probably the number one blanket statement we get from new customers or people that are just building their first traditional or nostalgia cars. Like, I want to build a Trog racer, and a lot of these guys, what's kind of neat about the hobby is Trog has, as much as some people like to shit on Trog, I think I'm pretty neutral. I think it's great. We don't get to go to it because of the timing. The timing fucking sucks because I want to go every year, but because of Crowell and Hershey, it's difficult. I'm going to try this year. That's one of my New Year's resolutions, is to make it this year and try and time everything. But
that's been said multiple years in the past.
Yeah, but this year I'm going to do it. We got Luke now, so things can ship. People can help. I'm going to make a good effort. So, but I think because of Trog being so big and the masses going to it and seeing it and consuming it on social media, we're getting literally like lawyers that have never built a car, and they decide, I want to build a trog racer with my son or my daughter, and they're building their first car. So I think it's fantastic. Or, oh, I've always had muscle cars. I think it'd be neat to build a trog racer. And that's where we have these conversations, and they're like, well, what do you want to do with the car?
Yeah.
Well, I want to race it a trog. Is that it? You're just going to race it once a year, and that's it? And then usually it's like, well, it'd be cool to take my grandson out in the, XYZ. It's like, well, the car you're talking about building isn't that.
So you could build a street car and take it to trog and race. But if you're building like a down and dirty, just trog racer, like you're not going to want to drive it on the street.
Yeah,
like I had a guy the other day, we have a set of 15-inch wheels for sale. At trog, you cannot run 15s. You have to run, I think it's 18s, 17s, or 16s.
Which I find unusual because technically, if we're getting nerdy, 15s were put on in the era that they're doing the...
Technically, yes. But anyway, he was like, well, I can't run them at trog. I'm like, but you could put them on and use them at the street, and you have different wheels to race on the beach. He's like, oh, yeah, I didn't think about that. It's like, well, you just take the wheels off. It's like...
Very simple.
Yeah, it's a very simple switch around. So I actually probably do us a disservice by having these conversations, because I could sell way more parts and just be like, yeah, that'll work. Totally. That'll work for what you need. Just buy it and be gone. But we try and like help people through the process, because they don't really think about the big picture. They're focused on the big picture and not some of the little details of what they actually need.
Yeah, and that's in the end of the day, we want to sell with it. It's something we say all the time. We want to sell a lot of parts, not just one part, and then the person's bummed because they spent a bunch of money and couldn't use it. So if Mike educates them and they don't buy something that day, they may come back because they're going to trust us to be honest with them that part is what they need or what they could use. So we try and do that. But you're seeing it there's a lot of, it seems like a lot of people they just get so hyper focused on certain cars or certain ways. So when I'm looking at, so for instance, right now, I'll talk through the process, and it's not that I'm special. I just, my thought process, I nerd out on trying to make a nostalgic car that is uniquely mine. Any car I've tried to put together, I want it to uniquely be mine, even though if you don't know us or the car, you would look at it and be like, oh man, that looks like it was an old hot rod built back in the day. So I usually pick a period. We've talked about this a lot, so some of this information is regurgitated. But I'll pick a period so that we got that 32.3 window in Florida that is some kind of old channel show car or something, and I'm trying to read it to what the car era that it was built.
Yes.
So that's the key thing I think a lot of people miss is what is the era that you're building the car to. So people will pick a Dry Lakes era car, but then they start building it like it's a bearish show car from the mid 50s, and it's like that's not totally different types of cars. So I think that car, its last version, because a lot of these cars have multiple versions, is probably a 60s, like I'm going to say early to mid 60s era build. The type of paint,
the vinyl roof covering.
The vinyl type of roof covering, that was cool to do in that period. And if you look at the old magazines, you see some of these styles. So it's like, that's what my vision or version of it, I would think that's what it was. That's what I'm assuming. So I'm looking at late 50s to mid 60s magazines, because a lot of the magazines, they were ahead of the curve, and the average guy was doing it kind of, after the fact. So I'm looking at, like right now I have in my house, I take a thing of magazines. So I have 50, I think it's 58 or
57, 58 Carcraft.
Yeah, 57, 58 Carcraft. So I just pick that year range and I flip through them and look at the cars, and then I start picking out what were they running, what were the wheels, what were the, that kind of stuff. And what's neat is when you look at the old photos, the old magazines, you start really studying. Don't pick the most famous car, unless you're trying to build a replica of it, which is cool. But if you're trying to build something that's your own but nostalgic, I start looking at some of the not the cover car. I'm looking at the car that was the...
Got to look at the B-sides.
Yeah. It's all the one-pager. That's some cool car that was maybe built in South Dakota, and it got a feature, and it's maybe a little wacky or a little different. You go, oh man, that's neat how they did the exhaust, or they did they ran these types of hubcaps or wheels or, whatever. And it gives you these ideas that are a little different. That guy did something a little different that makes it, that.
And sometimes what's cool too is if you find a popular car, sometimes the previous rendition is like a little bit less known, but has some of the same characteristics as the popular version.
Yes.
But it's a little bit more, say, subdued or just fits the earlier time period, like the Cookie T.
Oh yeah.
The first version, the
Lightning Bug.
The Lightning Bug has very similar look to the Cookie T silhouette wise, but the silhouette's amplified a lot more in the Cookie T, like the way the car sits higher.
And it's just black paint. It's a little more subdued, and that version of the car, Norm's car, was more like the era that I built the free T. It's kind of like that was the very beginnings of the T bucket era. So that is more like kind of when he built that. It's just getting out of the era of the Isky T and some of that like T racer kind of look, track T, and getting into the
T
so it's
face.
like that weird little in between time. So it's a neat way to to build that.
Yeah, because everyone tries to imitate. Not everyone. Back then, the Cookie T was like the most popular T bucket for a while.
Yeah,
and people were trying to replicate that look. So that look has been copied so much, but the Lightning Bug is a little less popular, I would say, for look wise, and I like it better personally.
Well, that was why, like, when I did the free T, that was a good example. It was like I had this T, it was free, and I was kind of like everybody. The reason that a lot of people don't like T's is for the longest time everybody kind of hated T buckets. T buckets got so wacky and kind of watered down, like people doing just like in the 80s and 90s, and some of the T buckets are just so cheesy. It's like there was an era where the 60s and 70s where they were definitely cool, super cool, but then it started just getting so not good. I mean, it's just like kind of junky, and just not, I don't know, confused.
Yes,
so
very confused.
I was like, man. And then I found this like little sweet spot. See the Isky T and
Blackie's T,
T, and some of these different ones that are more like they were like the track T's, but they were street cars
and show cars.
And show cars, and you're like, that's a cool. And then once you go down that path of like, okay, let's look at 48 to like, the early 50s or mid 50s, and you see this era of these T's that are a little more proportional, and they don't have necessarily crazy wild engines, and they're just, they sit low, and they're just really this really cool vibe. And I'm like, okay, that's what I'm shooting for. So I started looking at all those cars and saving photos. Ivo T,
and the
Black Widow.
The Black Widow, yeah.
There's a bunch of those, and you start looking at them like, what were these people doing? And it's like they were actually
obviously the Isky T is probably of that era.
Yeah.
The Isky T is probably one of the most popular.
So, but yeah, I'd say that's the most famous one because it still exists. So in modern times, we've all kind of seen photos of it, and there's a lot more documentation.
And then you do that deep dive, and you go to like Blackie's is probably one of the next, and then the Black Widow, and you go further down.
Ivo's T is probably,
yeah, it's true.
And that the Ivo T is kind of like the Lightning Bug.
Yeah,
that's that same era. So that's kind of like a little newer than I was going for, but it was like just before that. That's when you were seeing the track T style ones, and that's where we did a podcast on the winners of the Roadster show.
Yeah.
The early winners we were going through, and one of the things I remember is a bunch of the first years were all had track noses, and they were either Model A's or Model T's. And I started looking at them like, man, in the 40s, like the late 40s and early 50s, like actually building a T Roadster was kind of like the it thing. With a 28.9 Roadster was kind of like was it. So I just started looking at what are some of the things they were doing. What is the, what was the styling? And that's where I came up with like, one thing I noticed on the T's was a lot of the really cool T's, the exhaust was part of and early A Roadsters. Like those cars, the exhaust was part of the styling. Like it wasn't just functional, it also was the styling. And you're seeing some of these dry lake cars / show cars that were like super cool pipes coming out, and then they run down the side of the car, and the brackets are neat to hold them. And I'm like, okay, my T needs to have
Yes.
some wild exhaust that looks cool, but also, it kind of flows with the body. And then I worked with my buddy Ben, and he and I kind of crafted a stainless exhaust system that looks, that actually is functionally part of the styling of the car. With that off, it is kind of boring.
If you were a real hot rodder from the 50s, you would have had an 8-foot piece of exhaust chromed.
Yeah. Well, that's why we did stainless, and I polished the pipes because I couldn't afford to do that.
That's so wild.
So we did the stainless, and it worked out nice. But that was one of those things that's like looking at, different stuff, but taking little tweaks and pieces and making your own. And what made me think of this podcast topic is when I was building the Merc, it's a catch-22. With our channel being big enough now, we get a lot of people commenting and watching and different things. So we get a lot of armchair experts, and I've been dealing with it since the free tee.
Yep.
Even on the ham, when I started posting the free tee, there was people that were telling me that the way I was doing it was wrong, or it was stupid, or nobody would have done it that way. And when I was doing the Merc, it was like from day one, guys are like, the way you're chopping that is wrong. I could tell you have no fucking clue what you're doing. And all the people are saying all these things. Oh, that car's, it's just going to be another stock car with just a chop on it, and blah, 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 blah. And it's like, I had a silhouette.
Yep.
I had all these hundreds of photos. And I was also taking, I even do now, some of the bigger shops, much like back in the day, you would look at what a Winfield or a Barris, or if you're a garage builder, you're looking at what the better guys are doing, the more noteworthy guys, and then you're doing your version of it. So I do that now. When I was doing the Merc and researching it, I was watching what the high-end guys or guys that are more doing better work than I am, how they were chopping them, how they were flowing things, and all that kind of stuff. So it's the same thing. I'm taking what these builders that are doing traditional cars are doing and taking little pieces from each of them. Yep. This guy stretches this, and he does it that way. And I credit it in the videos a lot. Drew from Fat Fender Customs, really admire his work, and never reached out to him or anything. I just took pieces of how he did it. And there was a car that he did where he made the whole rear catwalk area, and I kind of took a piece of that and did it my own way. And it was at the peak of my skill level, so it's definitely not as good as anything he would do. But I think the important thing is that you're giving credit to somebody that you're, that's the thing that's changed with social media is there's receipts. You need to show the receipts. If you're the first guy to do it, and if you don't, people are going to call you out. So I make sure that we're, I made mention of that.
Yes.
Because
and same with the windshield, the raised windshield.
Well, that was done.
That's actually been done a lot, but there wasn't a guy that showed how he was doing it step by step.
Well, Drew
dimensions.
Not only dimensions. I just kind of did what.
Oh, okay.
There's kind of a standard what a lot of guys do, but the one thing I took is Drew. I saw, and other people may do it. He did the sandwich with the board,
that's right.
Where he did the pattern and he sandwiched it all together, and that way it made everything stay true.
That's right.
And that made my life a lot easier, and I saw that idea and used it. So there was a bunch of those little things. But then when I was getting into the car, it's the stretching the gutter thing was totally my thing that I'm sure other people have done it. But when we were standing back, I'm like, it looks like that window needs to be longer. And that wasn't me looking at anybody else. It was just kind of I think it needs to flow a little more. And it was at that point, I wasn't replicating. And I think sometimes people get so I want the chop exactly like so-and-so's car. So they're going to blow up with a photo and the dimensions and chop it exactly like the Zorro Merc or the Matranga Merc. And they want the profile to be exactly the same. And it's sometimes it's cool to just maybe make it a little more.
I think the other thing people do is they're not rushing, but they're so set on doing it that way. Yeah. What we do, which we have the ability to do, is you finish a task, stand back, and you look at it and let it sit for a day or two before moving forward. I feel like a lot of times with shops, they're on not a time crunch, but a schedule to get it done by a certain time. So there's sometimes less.
I know it's shops. I think again, that's a modern with social media and the way our world is these days. Everybody's in a rush to
Yeah.
get things done as fast as possible, and like the whole fucking stupid chop a car to show, or all these fucking stupid classes to chop a car in a weekend that like
It takes away the art.
Winfield started doing that shit, you fucking posers. So everybody that's trying to copy that shit, like there was a reason Winfield and these guys were doing that, to make fucking money.
Yeah.
I helped Gene do some of them. He was not doing his best work. But all these people are like I chopped the car in 24 hours and it's become this thing. Well, a lot of times most of those chops look like dog shit. When Winfield did it, a lot of the work he was doing was dog shit. And I told him that it looked like dog shit, and he's like, "It doesn't fucking care. We're just doing a chop at a show in a weekend. I just
weld it.
Just weld the shit up, done. In a more eloquent Gene way."
Yes.
But like that mentality has gone into now. People are like rushing to like they got to chop the car and get it tacked back together and weld it up, and it's
they're missing the artistic
Yes.
side of it, where like chopping a car, yes, you're looking for an overall silhouette, but if you stand back in between phases, you might make little tweaks. But if you're just like steamrolling to the end to chop it, then it's all welded together, and you go, we should have moved that a little. It's already together. We'll just nothing we can do.
And it's not that those cars. It's not that doing it that way your car necessarily looks bad.
No,
but sometimes there's little tweaks. I'm so glad on that car I did that, because almost every one of the little tweaks that I did made the car better and made it unique to be mine. So it's like I wanted in the end of the day, it's a black chopped 39 Merc. It's really not that unique. There's other black chopped 3940 Mercs that have been done, over the years, and there's some beautiful ones. But I was like, let me take these pieces of different things, and sure, my quality of work is not, to the level of these other guys, but at least the silhouette of the car and the car, somebody sees a photo of it, they'll know that it's my car, So doing that little body line around the back was like, Drew had done that on that car he had done, and I really, really like that. And what's funny is when I was thinking about chopping that car originally, I saw a couple people that put the stainless trim that was on the factory back on it.
Oh, we actually have to sell that. Isn't that still sitting up on the mez?
It might be. And I like that, and I was like half tempted to do it again. But then when I went back and we were getting ready to chop it, I started looking at photos. A lot of times the trim just didn't fit as well when you flowed the roof out. It just looked odd. And I was like, I don't know. I like it, but I don't like it. So I was like, and then when I saw that body line, I'm like, well, that's the way to give a nod to the factory type thing. And it just gives a little, and the more you start thinking about it, you're like, well, a lot of the old customizers and stuff, it's like they were doing lead work to create body lines, create styling, taking pieces of other cars and weld them in. So I'm like, it's kind of the same, even though I'm making it from scratch, it's like we're creating this body line to, stylize the car, but make it look like it should have been there. So that was why doing that. But like the windows, the stretching the windows and the hardtop thing, no plan at all. I mean, the hardtop thing, originally even as I was chopping the car, I was like, I don't know if I'm going to keep the pillar straight or angle it.
That's always the big decision when guys chop the Mercs. They either do straight, like the
Zara Merc, some of the early ones,
and then the Matranga is on an angle.
Well, no, it's got swooped. That's right. Swooped, and then there's the angled one that I think is more of a modern take on that. Yeah. You don't see
that many from back in the day.
Back in the day, they were done that way, and the Matranga Merc was just so ahead of its time, kind of thing. It was so crazy that I don't even feel like you saw many people copying that back in the day. No. It was kind of like that car, and that was it for 3940 Mercs. Now, of course, when you get into the 49 to 51 Mercs, yes, it was done a lot. But like that 3940 Mercs, you didn't see it too much. And then I feel like as we got into modern times, maybe the 80s, 90s, and newer, people started kind of replicating that a little more. And now in modern times, guys are doing the Matranga Merc or Hirohata Merc type hardtop window treatment to like everything. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of cool. Guys are starting to do it to a chopped Buick or whatever, and it like really does clean up the look of a car. I like that. Like that's a cool thing. And that's what we're talking about in the podcast. It's like you took this idea from the Matranga Merc or the Hirohata Merc, and now you're taking your spin on it and you're doing it on a hard top on a 3-window Buick or something, or some kind of, whatever it is. You're doing a 37 LaSalle and you're doing the hardtop window thing. It's like, well, that's really cool. That's
the best part about hot rodding. There's very little rules. You can kind of just do whatever you want.
There's no rules. And I think a lot of people just get stuck in doing, so when I was doing the Merc, it's like the interior, it was like I'm looking at cars that were done back in the day and how were done in the era I was doing it, and I'm like, as much as I want to do something wild, I'm like something subdued, but I want with black, I wanted the interior to pop and draw you into the car, but I want it to be subdued at the same point. And then it's like looking at old historic cars. I looked at a hot rod, not really a custom.
Yeah.
And then, you see one of the most famous, 36s, most famous 36 ever.
Yeah.
And you're looking at it and it's like, it's got red with the white pinstripe. And then I started looking at more old photos, and a lot of people are doing that. The white piping in the interior is just like really popular. So that's where you're like taking some of that. And I put that in the car, and like people were like, that they never would have done that. That looks like shit. And you're like, well, here's a car that was built in the 40s and is done like that, is very famous. It's like I'm not doing anything wacky. But when it gets into hot rods, it's like, people get very set on doing this style wheel, this style whatever.
The Milner Coupe. I mean, how many people have made a clone of the Milner Coupe, kind of?
Yeah, kind of. I like that. The Milner Coupe, kind of. So it's like loosely based on it. It's yellow and it has a small block.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's it.
Yes.
Everything else is like, whatever. But I don't, like, you could do that style stance or whatever. I mean, you can do whatever you want. It doesn't matter. It's just, I'm trying to give ideas. So like sometimes what I'm doing, you do something different. A lot of the cars that jump out to me that shops are building that are doing traditional type builds, it's like they're thinking outside the box but keeping, within the time frame. And it's neat when guys like gauges, it's like you don't have to spend the extra time, and you don't have to necessarily put like reproduction Stuart Warner Wings gauges in. Like, people go through all this effort to get all these like rare parts, and then they just give up when it gets to the gauges or certain things. And it's like, just look for what, there could be some cool LaSalle gauges you could run or something like that. Boat gauges.
Oh, when we're back down in Georgia, there's a bunch of boat junkyards we've passed.
Ooh, yeah.
And I was like, oh man, I had 0 tools. So I was like, I really want to stop, but we have 0 tools and I can't get anything out probably.
Yeah, you could always call those places and stop in, and they might have a room. Some of them have just rooms full of gauges because they, wood boats, they might have been junk and they scrapped them. But yeah, so like looking at some of that stuff that's from that era, you can use, like the Free T has gauges from a 37 or 8, I think, Nash Lafayette. And I first saw one of those gauges in our buddy Jerry's car that he built. He had one, and I think he found it and didn't really know what it was. Maybe
was it the Speedo, or did he have the multi-gauge?
I think he had a Speedo, and he couldn't find the other one. He built some car and put other gauges around it. Looked bitchin'. And I kind of like stumbled upon on eBay the pair, and they were super nice. And I'm like, oh, those are amazing. The Speedo looked really cool in Jerry's car. So it's like, I didn't come up with that idea. I saw his, and it got me thinking about some sort of Art Deco non-Ford, non-Stuart Warner.
Yeah.
And then I saw a set. I put him in the T. His was in...
His 5-window? 32 5-window?
Is that what it was in? I can't remember.
Or no. Was that a 3-window? The one with the Hemi.
I was 32 3-window. It might have been in that. Yeah, I can't recall. He's built a bunch of cars.
Because I don't think it was in either of his Roadsters, was it?
I don't remember. But anyways, again, trying to give a nod that he did it. He had it in his car. I thought it was really cool. And then when I started seeing them, then you're like, oh, here's a pair. And I even remember when I got the pair, he's like, oh, man, I never knew there was what the other gauge was.
And the best place to do that is go to the car show at Hershey, the AACA car show, and just walk around and look in the cars at all the dashes, and you're like, ooh, because there's some like odd stuff that shows up to Hershey that you've never seen before. You look and you're like, whoa, those gauges are super cool. It's one of my favorite parts of Hershey.
Yeah, and that's the stuff where even we do it now when we go, like with the one the one private collection that we bought some stuff from. We were walking around and I like saw some cool trim on I don't even remember what the hell it was. It was some kind of oddball car.
I don't remember.
I don't know if it was a Buick or what it was, but or early Terraplane. I don't remember, but that's a really cool trim. So I'm like taking photos because I'm like, this trim on its own, I wouldn't even know what it was or what it fit. And when you see it on that car, like, oh, that would be killer on a custom or something. So it's like keeping all those little details from cars of the same era. That's the same thing that trying to put yourself in that mindset of, that's the same thing that the guys would have been doing back in the day. So you would have went to a junkyard and a guy would have seen something cool, or that car would have been driving around and you went to the movies, the moving picture show. And
the drive-in
went to my moving picture show, and you saw, you know, maybe it's the doctor's cars parked in the parking lot and he's got a Nash or a Nash Lafayette or a Packard, and you're like, that's cool. And then you find a Packard in the junkyard and you take the gauges, you take the trim, and
that's how all the engine swaps from back in the hot rod days, where you just went to the junkyard and you went, oh look, there's a low mileage that just got crashed.
I'm gonna put that in.
I need an engine for a hot rod, and we'll figure out how to make that work.
Yeah, so that's it gets a little harder when you get into the engine stuff because there was only so many speed part companies. So it's like that part of it's really hard. It's like, if you have a Caddy engine, there's only one of so many intakes you can run. I get it, but it's the way you put the engine bay together and the things you do that can set yours apart. The looking for the cool little doodads. That's why most people that get nerdy into this, like myself, have cases and shelves of shift knobs and little doodads and finned this and that, because those are all the little gingerbread things that you do.
Sprinkles on top.
Yeah, that's the stuff that helps make the engine bay look different. But I also have photos of some stuff like guys are the guys that get real crazy with routing the wires, and they're actually making the wiring part of the styling of the firewall. And
making like stainless tubing to loom the wires together and stuff.
So like that stuff is the little details you can do that are different and makes it unique. And I think that's the stuff that makes your thing stand out. But the overall styling, it's like I want to try and be artistic with it. I hate the water where people just lay over and they just copy everything. And, that's why a lot of people, when I chopped the Merc, as I was getting closer to being done or together, I got a bunch of DMs from people that were like, how many inches is that chop? Could you send me the patterns for the sail panels and that whatever, so I want to chop mine just like yours. I like that. I'm like, it's not that I'm gatekeeping. I'm like, part of the process of making that car my own is that I made all that from scratch. Yes, I have the fucking patterns, but you're not going to get them because I didn't go to Drew and go, hey man, can I come make paper patterns off of your car? It's like mine's gonna be chopped differently than his. It's just I used some of the ideas for that.
And also, to be fair, we don't know how much we really chopped it in the rear.
I always tell people that.
We kept moving the roof till it looked right. And there was multiple times where Matt would come over to the parts booth and be like, hey, can you come over? We're trying to figure out.
We're having a meeting here, everybody.
Just move it a little bit, and then we'd all stand there and look at it, and then we move it a little bit more, and then all stand. Then he'd tack it into place, and then the next day I'd come over, and he's like, I cut it back apart, and we're moving it again. Yeah, it's like, there's the real process is you just chop it till it looks right, and that's where it is, and you don't really take an exact measurement. We did that with my car. We were like, we'll chop it like 2 inches. Then I sat in it, and we just kept moving the tape on the windshield up and down till we're like, that looks good.
I don't remember what yours is.
I have the pieces. They're still on the dash of my truck.
That's funny.
I have the sections of windshield posts we cut out.
That's cool. You can hang them can hang them from your garage wall.
I'll hang them off the back of the car like truck nuts.
That's funny. But that's the part of it that like the car should be chopped to what you like.
Yeah.
Or modified to what you like, not trying to replicate another, specifically another car. Unless, of course, you're doing a historic car where you're trying to do true to how it was. Yeah. But I usually just get these silhouettes. And like I said, sometimes it's a modern take on, a nostalgia car. So like I'm thinking of it because the 32 behind us, that car is a mild hot rod, probably the wheel and tire choice isn't really, if we're being nerdy, it's not really period correct.
Yeah.
It's got the big 18s in the back, and that was more of like a dry lakes kind of thing. And then it's got the 16s with the small tires in the front, like the heavy rake. But the rest of the car is like almost stock appearance.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of like I think that's become a modern like thing that's kind of in vogue. But I do like that. And that car, I was like, well, this isn't a car I'd want to chop and do all this crazy shit to. But I still want it to be obviously a hot rod. So it's like people go nuts over that car when we post photos. I'm like, I didn't really do anything that crazy. I got a set of 18-inch reproduction 40 wheels from Steadfast, or secondhand from Steadfast, and then it set of 18-inch tires from Firestone Reproduces, and put a drop axle on it. And yeah, it's an old Moore drop or it might even be a Dago, I don't remember, but it's just got this heavy rake to it, and it's all of my reference photos when I was building it were cars from the ham and social media that were modern. I didn't take it from something else. So it's like that's a good example of...
I did want to say, if you want to do like a crazy deep dive on photos, the ham has some of the best photo archives or threads they're just photo threads. And if you want to, some of them have like 1,500 pages. Like if you want to like do a deep dive to find some like off the wall inspiration, that you got to take an evening and get a case of beer and sit down and just click through pages of photos on the ham, because there's some really good photo threads of like just great photos people find on the internet.
And we figured out recently on Instagram you can actually search.
Oh yeah.
You could search terms
and it searches the description.
And it searches the description. You'll get this list of, you can do like black 32 Ford or something, and it'll pull up. I mean, it's not perfect, but it'll pull up people's posts, and you'll sometimes find a random person that posted a photo from a car show of a neat car, and who knows what it is. It could be a photographer, and you're like, whoa, that's really cool, or whatever. But I don't know. So like that's a good example where it's like I had a car that I wanted to leave relatively stock bodied. I just wanted to make it sit right and just be a neat kind of mild build. So it's not truly period correct, but we're gonna do another podcast on like let the car speak to you. So that was one where I just like that car was kind of telling me it doesn't need anything major. It just needs a slight attitude adjustment.
The Merc was talking to you for years that it needed to be chopped. It had a mouse nest in the roof that progressively got worse and worse.
Yeah, so I always knew that was going to happen, but I was researching all these different cars and how I liked it, and actually it morphed right up to chopping it, because I was originally going to chop it more like the Zorro Merc, like an early kind of Barris style, and then the more I looked at it, I'm like, I love it. I decided that why I loved it so much was because it was one of the first ones chopped, and it was it was an early Barris Merc, and that's why I loved it. But I really, if that car, and I knew no history about it, and I saw it in person, there would have been some stuff that I didn't like, or would have done differently. And I'm like, well, why am I going to copy exactly what that was done when I already don't really like some of that stuff? And I kind of like last minute was like, I think I'm going to chop this. Like, so I actually chopped that thing way more flowy than I was going to do it originally. And I realized that what I really liked was the flowiness. And that's where the Matranga Merc has a much more flowy roof.
Yep.
I love that. But I wanted to do something a little bit different. And that's what I'm, hopefully.
And you made it your own.
Made it my own. Leaving the trim on the side, much debated. A lot of people say it's a custom. You should take all the trim off. I could argue that, because there's some customs where they would leave some trim on. They'd abbreviate the trim on the hood. There's and that's where I even thought of that with doing the Merc. There was guys who were like, no, Barris would always do a lot of the guys would just do the abbreviated trim on the back side of the hood. It's like, sure, but that's just what was cool, but that doesn't mean that you have to do exactly that. People bitch because I took the trim off the very bottom of the hood. Oh, that this and that. And it's like, you get yelled at. It's like, you should have left that on, but you should have taken that off.
The internet, you do everything wrong. There's no right thing on the internet. Everything's wrong.
Yeah, and then, I look at these photos and it's like, well, really, a lot of the customs you're looking at, they took everything off. There's like no chrome, and it's just like everything smoothed and leaded and It's just like.
And I feel like that was a progression. If you look at some of the early customs, they're more of that style, like the Merc, where they took a few things off. But you have to remember, a lot of these cars were at the shows every year. So for every show season, they had to do something different. So it's like, well, we already chopped the car. Well, what we can do different? Well, let's take all the trim off.
Yeah.
What can we do different? Let's French different headlights on it. So it's like you have to look at these cars as more of a progression through the years, and then not just like they took a stock car and it ended up here. They're very much, there's different phases of the car, and you may not see photos of the car with trim and then the next year without trim. Those early photos are all gone, and everyone focuses on the final product of
a lot of times it got more and more wild. So it's like that, it had the trim, and then they took trim off, and then they leaded the rear fenders in, and then they did it, and then that's kind of what back to that 3 window. It's like that car probably started out as a little more mild of a hot rod, and then it progressed to the point where I think the last version they just welded sheet metal over the trunk opening, and they just got they smoothed out the firewall. And it's like probably at some point that car had a trunk. It might have just had a flat aluminum firewall and it was channeled, and then it's hard to say, but knowing how this stuff usually progresses, that's kind of how it goes. And it's like that's where you just pick that point of time and what you want. And I think that, like, back to the trim thing, I really like on these big cars like this, and it's really common on the 50s cars, that piece of trim breaks up all the color.
Yeah.
And the bulkiness of it. So.
And on the 50s cars, even stock 50s cars, that trim line was the break of the two-tone.
Yep.
The Hirahata Merc, that's the break of the two-tone green.
It's built into the styling and the flow of the car. So that's where, leaving that piece of trim on, I'm like, I really, really like that. And I saw some people that did different types of trim that I really liked. And it's like, again, I was trying not to copy all these little pieces from everybody else. So, like, I forget who did it. It might have been Bellows.
I think it was Bellows on a 30 or
it was 39 or 40 Merc, but he did 42 Mercury trim or something.
42 Merc or 42 Ford, I remember. It's
but
fatter.
It was like a kind of chunky trim, and it looked really cool, and I loved it. And I was like, oh, man, that'd be sick. And I'm like, I'm literally just biting all these people's things. So it's like I just tried to take one or two things from nostalgic, one or two things from some guys that are doing, nostalgic or traditional stuff now, and then a bunch of my own stuff. And then you end up with this. So that's where, like, the dash, going through the same progressions, it's like what a guy would have done. He would have built it, driven it kind of stock, slightly lowered, and then he would have changed it. And then and that's why I've been a big, we've been talking about this a lot, where it's okay to build your car, drive it for a little while in progress or a certain way, and then do it a little better. That's how it's been done since the beginning of customizing and hot rodding. So
I feel like that's been washed over by the internet, because people bring a car in and it leaves finished.
It has to be debuted as the finished car, and it's like, so that's like the Merc. I'm like, we got the interior done. And it's like it's chopped and it's shiny.
Change the brown dash. You have to get rid of the brown dash.
Like, I know. The goal was, just like these guys back in the day, I wanted to drive it last season. I wanted to take it to some shows.
Yeah.
Mission accomplished. I can drive it. I can take it to some shows. Now I want to do the dash and the steering wheel, and I'm gathering those parts, and then, one year I'm going to do that. Maybe next winter I'll do it. But, so that's like the thing. It's like, and in my head, I'd like to maybe smooth the rear fenders, weld them to the quarters, and lead them in someday. But that was so much more work to get to that point that.
And that's why some people never finish cars.
They want to. It has to be this.
It has to be finished, perfect. Everything needs to be done to it, and then it sits in a garage for 50 years with the paint stripped off of it and never gets finished.
I think that is why, I know for me, that's one hurdle in the last few years, and the Merc was a huge breakthrough for me. I was always scared to paint a car myself, a whole car. I've painted little things and different stuff, and that's my first car of actually, like, basically painting most of the car, big panels. And now that I did that, and, like, it has tons of imperfections. There's stuff on the bodywork that's not, 100%. But I'm like, I got over that. I have to have a buddy do it because it has to be perfect. And it's like, now that I did it myself, I'm like, I'm not too scared to, like, fucking sand the paint off and go back and customize it more, because I'll just paint it myself. It's not a big deal. So now I, like, got over that hurdle. So now I'm like, well, I'll paint this car. I'll paint that car. And it's like the 33 Arden car. I'm like, I'll just paint that myself. If I did the Merc, that car is way smaller.
There's very few actual very large. The doors are probably the largest flat panel.
Yeah, the doors. So
and
it's
the
like,
trunk lid.
Yeah, so it's like I did that thing, and it's relatively straight. The panels I didn't bodywork every panel on the car. But it's like, for what I want the car to be, I've now had the breakthrough that I'm like, me painting it myself is to the level that I'm happy. I'm happy to drive it. I don't want to win awards. I want to just cruise it and enjoy it, and I enjoy the process. So that takes away one of those hurdles for me, because it was always like finding a buddy that could help me do body work, or just outright paying someone to do it, and then it takes forever, or it's crazy expensive. It's worth it for the quality jobs. Yeah. But I realize that what I want out of the car probably isn't necessary. I don't need to spend, I was never getting $30,000, $50,000 paint jobs, but like, even, spending $10,000, $20,000 to have a shop do a okayish job nowadays, just to paint a car, I'll half-ass do it myself, and it'll look cool, and but that, once you get over those hurdles, then you're not as afraid, and that's probably where a lot of it is, where like guys are afraid to just dive in and do it, and then they have to have a shop where they have to have it totally done. It's like, swap the dash out later. Who cares, and
just drive it and enjoy it.
But I just try and look at those oddball cars, or look at the cars that are from the era you're building, and there's maybe something that's a little different, and that helps make it uniquely yours.
Definitely.
That's some of my favorite cars that have come out in recent times have been cars that are just that little bit different. Maybe the flames are a little different, or that whatever on it, and it makes you be like, oh man, I never kind of thought flames were overdone. You're like,
and I have to say, the last couple Grand National winners have been, the majority of the entrants are very cookie cutter cars, and the guys that win, I mean, Three Dog won twice in the last 3 years. Their Phaeton that won had literally every body panel was section narrow. It was like the step above, and then the 36 that just won last year was but hand-built from scratch, and had like all this different stuff done to it, and it's like,
but it still looks right. That's what's cool about it.
But it set itself way above all the competition, because nothing against the entrants at the Grand National, not talking shit. A lot of them are 32 Roadsters on 32 chassis with just like a wild engine and billet wheels and a little bit of custom interior work, but they're as a silhouette, they're almost all identical looking.
They're still kind of doing that Foose, earlier Boyd Coddington era that was really big. They're still doing cars in that manner, which isn't as popular nowadays. It's not saying they're not nice cars, and they're not done, and they don't have a ton of money in them, but it's like that the bar has keep getting raised, and I enjoy, like the 36, the Roadster that won. We saw that a handful of years before in bare metal.
2 years before.
I like seeing that in bare metal, and some guys are doing that, because you could see some of the inner working brackets and little things that the average guy like us can take into your own build. And it's like, sure, we can't do all the, we can't all build a car like that that's literally from scratch, but like maybe the way they made a little overflow tank that's like hidden into the, the grill shroud. It's like, wow, that's really cool. I could maybe replicate something like that, and like, so.
He won 2 years in a row. It wasn't spaced apart. He won in 24 and 25.
Jesus. It's crazy.
Segue. Super excited for Grand National this year. Can't wait.
Yeah, it's going to be cool to see all kinds of neat stuff. But, I think it's kind of cool. It's been fun. A similar thing. It's just in my brain because I watched it last night. Lucky, Piero, they put out their latest episode.
Oh, yeah.
On the Funky T, which is kind of neat because it's not a car personally I would do, but it was interesting watching them working through some of the little changes they're making.
I haven't watched any of the episodes. Sorry,
cool.
Piero. I need to catch up.
It's really, really cool. It's an interesting, on top of the fires that happened and he lost everything, and somehow the T was saved by the grace of the hot rod gods and was at Lucky's shop. But like watching them go through and they're like changing but keeping. So they're like, okay, well, we're going to put the lanterns on. They took a 32 grill off, which I was like, oh my
Why
God,
would you do that?
Why would you do that? And then he put the T grill on, and like now the latest episode I watched, I'm like, it's kind of like it all kind of fits the little tweaks he did. And it's no different than back in the day, these famous cars that got bought by the next owner and they kept the silhouette, but they changed to their liking, the little doodads, made the car fit him a little better. And, Lucky was changing the rear cross member to make the car more functional, so it has actually suspension travel. And I texted him last night, and like he was dealing with cutting off there was 1 inch thick plate with a piece of round tubing welded to it for the spring hanger for the Model A or T spring, and he's like cut off grinding the thing, and I could just see how much it sucked. And I text him, I'm like, dude, I literally have, I've lived that. I know what you're going through. And he's like, it's way more fun to watch somebody else do it. I'm like, yeah, you're kind of right. It is. It's usually me doing the shitty work. But it's been interesting to watch them, what I'm getting at. They've changed some of the stuff of the car, but it still looks, the silhouette's there. Yeah. And it's 100% his car now. Yes, it was an old hot rod, but they tweaked it, and it's the funky T. Yep. It is that T. And I love that. That's neat to take these cars, even historic cars that aren't super famous, and now you put your little tweaks on them. That's kind of like what we did with the Schroll Coupe. It's still it is that car, but it's now my car because I've probably driven that. I have driven that car more than it's ever been driven. We could just tell by the way it was built. It was more of a drag car, young man that built it that was crude. Now I've made it to where you can go 70 miles an hour down the highway. It's still a real deal raw hot rod, but it's, little things we've changed with the olds that's in it and the LaSalle.
And DeLorean cars the same way?
That car I didn't do much. I changed the rear and lowered it a little more. Where the Schroll car, I changed a couple of the interior I changed a little bit, and I want the Schroll car, we have another round of changes I'd like to do. I'm going to put a drop axle on, and I'm going to put some more chrome, and I'm not against, we've even talked about maybe I should paint it, maybe the same color and make it kind of nice. And it's that car is mine now. I'm the next caretaker. And once you get over that, it's not the cover car or hot rod, and it's some super valuable, car that you can't touch. It's we documented the history of it. I'm just making my history of it. And these little things I'm doing, it's, that's the same way. So it's fun with the Survivor cars to start doing some of that. And that's where that 3-window, I'm kind of want to leave the old paint and the filled trunk. It's kooky. And
to be honest, no one would fucking do that nowadays at all.
And that's what I love. It's if I kept that and just like the Schroll car, build everything around what's there, when that thing was on the street, you'd be people would be why would you fill the trunk? That looks like shit. I'm it kind of does, but it also speaks to when the car was built. And man, that would be that's the only one.
Do you imagine putting a post up on the Ham or any of the 32 Facebook groups that you were letting your trunk shut on your 32 3-window? That would be the most talked about post on any website in recent history.
Yeah, we should just do that one day on one of the cars. Just get a piece of sheet metal and lay it over top. And if it's a body, just MIG weld.
Oh my God.
Just put 4 tacks with the sheet metal and just watch all the 32 nerds.
Someone just did it on one of the Model A groups.
It was a German guy.
With
I think
the lights? The trailer lights? Oh, so good.
People were yeah, what are you doing, you idiot? It looks like dog shit.
You put tractor trailer, amber lights on the side of the cow for turn signals. And then in the tail pan where there was already tail lights there. Yeah. And he put amber, and then there was just so many comments. They're you're an asshole, blah, blah, blah. And then 3 days later, he posted a photo of the car. He's I was just messing with you guys.
Yeah. I actually clicked on his profile because if it was some boomer, I could have
definitely seen it. Yeah.
I could have seen that actually being true. But then I clicked on his profile, and he was a German dude, and he had old Ford signs, and I'm and I think he might have had something where he went to Romo. I'm this dude's playing.
If you look through the comments too, he was ultra trolling people in comments, and I was this is fake. He's just fucking with people.
It's something we would do.
Yeah, definitely. You've never posted any photos to troll with anyone ever.
No, I never do that. But yeah, that would be a fun one. Yes. So keep an eye out. Maybe we'll do that for fun.
We talked about doing that with the Merc and getting one of those gas powered metal cut saws, and Matt having a photo of him with like this big obnoxious cut off wheel trying to cut the roof on the Merc.
When I start the two that we're gonna that I'm gonna set off people is if I decide to actually customize the Packard. I don't know. Every day it changes in my brain. It's so far back on the list, but like the Lincoln is getting closer on the list. I've formulated a plan. I have a bunch of the parts, but man, when I start customizing that, those Lincoln Continental Zephyr groups, those guys are some of the purists are.
But what happens every time, including with the Merc, there's a ton of hate. People are like, "You're an idiot. That's gonna look like shit." And then the car is done and the vision is complete. There's always people that backpedal. Like, when you first started, I thought it was going to be terrible. And now that it's done, I actually really like it. It's always funny to watch people backpedal and be like, oh, you were right. It's like, hey, it's like we know what we're kind of doing a little bit.
I just, but I think what's different is I always choose being subtle and just kind of like restraint. Any car I've ever built since even German cars, I always tried to do stuff that had a little bit of restraint. And I think that's where a lot of people miss the mark. There's that restraint. And you get these weird Homer Simpson looking fucking cars that famous people on the internet are building.
Yeah.
And they look like dog shit. And everybody knows they look like dog shit. I don't know how anyone thinks they look good. And the lack of restraint or standing back and like what looks graceful, what looks nice. I mean, everybody can agree when a car flows good and it looks right and the silhouette's right. If you don't like there's tons of cars we see where I'm like, I don't really like the color of that car. But man, it's a bitchin' car. It's just not my color, Or I don't
like the wheels.
I don't particularly like the wheels. But you know what? The car overall is bitchin'. I was having a conversation with one of my buddies recently, like the interiors right now. It seems like the hot thing with nostalgic traditional cars is Mikey Seats is like the fucking at the head of the game right now with doing a lot of that. But there's other guys. They're taking like 50s or weird patterns.
Diner fabric, basically.
It's kind of, but it's like 50s car patterns that are unusual. Maybe it's from a 50s Buick high-end model and had a neat fabric.
Yeah, it's always that insert fabric that was on the back and the bottom of the seat.
So they're taking that and then they're upholstering it into the car in a certain way that's nostalgic, but it's very much an in vogue thing to do right now. And some of the cars that people were doing like that, I love them. Brian Bass has done a couple cars that I saw. He's posted sketches, and they look in hot rods. They look fucking awesome. And it's like some of them I like, some of them I'm like I don't know. And that doesn't mean that I don't think they're bitching. The overall car, how everything turns out, is amazing. It's just like I am able to separate. That's not my taste. That's not how I would have done it. But the overall package, it works.
Yeah.
And that's a good example of like a trend that they're just jumping off of, because you see the old photos and there was funky kind of inserts and interiors that guys were doing. And it's just the little tweak of taking 50s fabric and the way they're pleating stuff is a little different. It's really, really, really cool. But, it's just not my take on it. So I think that's part of like a custom car isn't going to be everybody's taste. You're building it to you. You're building a car to fit you and be what you're into. So I've always been a little more restrained. I take a little bit of restraint with the color, the styling, and it's more subtle. My thing I've always said is whenever I have a car, I want the overall car to draw you in, and then you find all the details. So the Merc, you just see it. It's got a good silhouette. It's a cool Merc, and then you walk up and you go, "Oh man, that's cool. They did the little body line." And
it's hard topped.
Yeah, it's hard top. Oh man, that interior is neat. It really pops, and like so that stuff. Then you go over the car. My favorite cars are like that. Even nostalgic cars that were done. It's the ones that have all these little details. You're drawn in because the car just looks kick-ass, and then it's the details that make it so unique and makes me.
That's one of my favorite things when we like Grand Nationals. A prime example. You stand there because you can't get close to the cars.
Some of them,
most of them. So you're standing there and looking at them from a distance, and then you stand there long enough, and you're like, "Oh look at that thing that they did," and you're just pointing out the little details. But it's the silhouette is just like so killer,
crawling under the car, and you're like, "Man, those hairpins are really cool. What they do?" And you're like looking at how they, somebody sculpted or did something. You're like, "Oh, that's so cool." And like, just taking that and putting your brain that do a jump off of that is what's, that's what this is all about. So it's tempting as it is to copy the top 100 most famous hot rods and customs of all time. Maybe you take some pieces of that and then look for the B-side.
Yes.
Look at the B-side cars. Look at the weird little feature in a magazine.
The hometown hot rods.
Hometown hot rods. Yeah, that's I love that. Build your own little hometown hot rods. So you can be your own hometown hero. That's
There's too many H's.
Hometown hot rod hero. There we go. We're going to make a bumper sticker for that.
Copyrighted. Don't try and take it.
There you go. So, but yeah, that's our kind of our hot take on that discussion.
Yeah.
I would love to. So that's kind of the podcast. If you guys, we always talk about, we love the discussion. So on our YouTube channel, especially, the people comment and have some great discussion. So if you have something that like on your build that you did that was maybe a, like we're talking about, your little thing that you did that's nostalgic car that you did that makes it your car, I'd love to hear something you did. And you don't need to gatekeep. Everything's been done. That it's all been done. So whatever you're doing, there's a version of it. And just because you did light blue instead of dark blue, it's the same fucking thing. It doesn't matter. So,
and if you see us at Allentown or out at Grand National and you have any podcast ideas, pull us aside, talk to us. We're always open to any type of discussion. We like the ideas. It helps us do this every week because we're going to run out of ideas eventually.
Yeah, we're going to be doing like, what's your favorite cereal or something if we run out of car ideas. And nobody really
What is your favorite type of steel wheel?
Well, I like when there's 3 pinstripes instead of 2 pinstripes. And then it's going to get a little boring.
Yes,
so, but
definitely.
Thank you guys. We appreciate it. And like I said, drop a comment down below if you got some unique thing you're doing to your build or you did that makes it your car that everybody knows. I'd love to hear your little hot take on it. So.
And if you enjoy guests, because we're going out to Grand National, we're filming some podcasts with some guests.
Yes.
So in a month or so, there'll be a bunch of episodes rolling out with someone other than Matt and I. So
yeah, it'll be great.
Stay tuned for those.
Hopefully they can talk a lot and I don't have to as much. But that's what you have going on. Thank you guys. Appreciate it. Catch you next time. See ya.
See ya.